no fear. I'm standing right here, eyes peer, with my mind clear, never look rear, only up.
You are the pound for pound best fighter the world has ever known.
Over the years, the world of MMA has seen some remarkable talent, and as a relatively new and constantly evolving sport, there is sure to be much more talent to come. With this idea in mind comes a very simple question. Who are the greatest? Who have been the most dominant in the sport? It's expected that fans will likely disagree about who belongs on a list of the best fighters of all time. So for this list, we'll be looking at things objectively, and judging fighters based on their number of championship title defenses, and the longevity of those title reigns. But I'd love to hear who you guys think are some of the greatest fighters of all time, so let me know your opinions down in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing. Now without further ado, here's a list for the greatest fighters in MMA according to their title defenses.
Let's do the damn thing!
Rivalries are largely responsible for building MMA into what it is today, and two of the biggest rivalries were formed during the reign of Chuck Liddell. Liddell first won the title after avenging his loss to Randy Couture at UFC 52, knocking him out cold inside the first round. From there, Liddell began cementing his place as one of the greatest of all time, taking out Jeremy Horn, Babalu Sobral, and Randy Couture, with all of his wins coming by way of knockout.
Whatever he hits, he destroys.
As Liddell steamrolled his way through the light heavyweight division, and ended his trilogy with fellow rival Randy Couture, he set his sights on an old foe, TITO ORTIZ. When they faced off in 2006, it was by far the biggest fight in promotional history, hitting the pay-per-view record at that time with 1 million buys. Liddell won their rematch in similar fashion to their first fight, with Chuck knocking out Tito to secure his fourth successful title defense. Unfortunately, his time as champion came to an end when he suffered a knockout loss to Quentin Rampage Jackson. Still, with impressive stoppage victories over UFC Hall of Famers, Chuck's title reign is one of the first and most historic runs in the UFC. TITO ORTIZ was one of the first superstars in the early days of the UFC. His tendency to engage in trash talk with his opponents made him an easy fighter to promote. After losing his chance to secure gold against Frank Shamrock at UFC 22, Tito won the vacant title against Wanderlei Silva at UFC 25 for the light heavyweight belt. From there, TITO ORTIZ began his dominant title reign, and went on to finish all three of his next opponents in the first round. Following those three victories, Tito would go on to secure two more title defenses, one against Vladimir Matyshenko, and the other in a grudge match against Ken Shamrock. In total, Tito was able to successfully defend his light heavyweight title 5 consecutive times, before losing his belt to Randy Couture at UFC 44. Until the John Jones era, Tito held the record for the most title defenses in the light heavyweight division. Whether you're a fan of Tito or not, his success as champion and his prominent role in the early days of the UFC make him one of the most important title holders in the promotion's history.
I pure, straight, hate you. But god damn it, do I respect you.
Matt Hughes was one of the first dominant champions in the UFC's welterweight division, as well as one of the first true mixed martial artists. Matt Hughes was one of the only fighters of his time who was well-rounded in all areas of the game. Superb wrestling, solid striking and jiu-jitsu, he had all the makings of a champion. Hughes won the title against Carlos Newton back at UFC 34, knocking him out by slamming him down on the mat, becoming the new UFC welterweight champion. From there, Hughes racked up 5 title defenses, with 4 of those wins coming by stoppage. Hughes eventually lost the belt in a historic upset loss to BJ Penn, but soon reclaimed the title against George St-Pierre. His first dominant reign, along with becoming a 2-time welterweight champion, cements Hughes as one of the best to ever do it. In just a couple short years, Joanna Jędrzejczyk went from being a relatively unknown fighter to one of the most dominant female champions in UFC history. After being crowned the new strawweight queen back in 2015 with her victory over Carla Esparza, Joanna Jędrzejczyk went on to run through her weight class with relative ease, vanquishing every top contender they put in front of her. Joanna went on to defend her title 5 consecutive times, before being stopped by Rose Namajunas in one of the biggest upsets in MMA history. Unfortunately, Joanna was unsuccessful at reclaiming her title in the rematch with Rose, but that doesn't take away from what she accomplished during her time as champion. Not only was Ronda Rousey the first female champion of the UFC, and one of the most dominant champions in the company's history, she was a fighter that was able to defeat her opponents with a speed and consistency that no other fighter was able to match. Rousey's reign of dominance began in the Strikeforce promotion, when she submitted Miesha Tate to become the new women's bantamweight champion. She defended her belt once before joining the UFC and being promoted to the UFC's bantamweight champion. From there, she earned 6 consecutive title defenses, with 5 of those lasting a combined 3 minutes and 8 seconds. Unfortunately, Rousey's downfall was less than graceful, after suffering a brutal knockout loss to Holly Holm at UFC 193. Her comeback fight wasn't much better, being stopped by Amanda Nunes in less than a minute. Still, for those of us who were there during her title reign, there's no question Ronda Rousey was a one-of-a-kind champion. For the MMA fans that have been here since before the rise of Conor McGregor, they will know that Jose Aldo was the first face of the featherweight division. For those that weren't, it's important to understand just how incredible Jose Aldo's run of dominance was. Jose Aldo's reign of dominance was historic, going on a 15-fight winning streak without losing a fight in over 10 years. To this day, he's one of only 3 people to hold the featherweight title. His entrance into the WEC saw him secure 6 straight knockouts, before going on to seize the WEC featherweight title from Mike Brown. From there, he went on to defend his title against WEC superstar Uriah Faber and Manny Gambierian, before being promoted as the UFC featherweight champion once the UFC absorbed the WEC promotion. As champion, Jose Aldo continued his reign of dominance in the UFC, defending his title 7 times, with wins over featherweight standouts Chan Sung Jun, Chad Mendes, and Frankie Edgar. Although his most memorable moment is arguably his 13-second knockout loss to Conor McGregor, it's impossible to deny Jose Aldo's incredible 6-year reign as champion. Even with all the controversy shadowing Jon Jones' career, it's undeniable that his title reign was, and is, something out of the ordinary. Early on, Jon Jones looked to be destined for greatness. Jon Jones won the title back in 2011, defeating Mauricio Shogun Rua by TKO to become the youngest champion in UFC history. From there, Jones went to take out multiple former world champions, including Quinton Rampage Jackson, Lyoto Machida, Rashad Evans, and Vitor Belfort. As new challengers came forward, Jones dispatched each of them one by one in convincing fashion, with no one being able to solve the puzzle that is Jon Jones. Jones is a rare breed of fighter that is at such an elite level. He makes his fighting style look easier than it actually is. His creativity and utilization of range has continued to be a powerful factor with each fight. In total, he was able to rack up 8 successful title defenses.
Wow.
Unfortunately, his title defense streak was temporarily halted after he was stripped of his title in 2015 due to a hit and run. Since then, he has regained the title and is to this day continuing to defend his belt.
I'm not impressed by your performance.
While there may have been some in the past who would call his style boring, George St-Pierre is arguably the greatest champion of all time. George St-Pierre was one of the first fighters of his generation to take MMA to the next level, incorporating a diverse set of wrestling and boxing skills and executing them perfectly. After avenging his loss to Matt Serra and becoming a 2-time welterweight champion, George St-Pierre went on a domination streak, completely outclassing his competition as he won 5 fights in a row without losing a single round. Although that streak was snapped after Jake Shields managed to take a couple rounds from the champion, George continued his reign of dominance with nearly flawless victories over Carlos Condit and Nick Diaz. As impressive as his reign over the division was, perhaps even more impressive was his ability to become one of the best wrestlers in the sport, despite having no prior wrestling experience and coming from a karate background. For George St-Pierre to out-wrestle accomplished wrestlers like Josh Koscheck and Matt Hughes was a sight to behold. Overall, George St-Pierre ended his career with 9 title defenses on his resume, with GSP vacating the title in 2013 soon after his win over Johnny Hendricks. But it didn't end there. George St-Pierre also went on to claim the middleweight title before calling it a career.
Impressive. Most impressive.
Like George St-Pierre, Anderson Silva is in the discussion for perhaps the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. Anderson Silva was unstoppable during his prime, and broke numerous records during his time as champion, with 10 consecutive title defenses, the second most in UFC history. As champion, Anderson Silva virtually cleaned out his division, and put on some of the most spectacular highlights in UFC history, with his brutal knockout over Rich Franklin to win the middleweight title, to his stunning front kick knockout of Vitor Belfort, to his comeback submission against Chael Sonnen when he was on the verge of defeat. Silva's career has been nothing short of incredible. Unfortunately, one of Silva's most entertaining aspects happened to be what caused his downfall, which was his tendency to drop his hands and taunt his opponents. Chris Weidman took advantage of one of these moments and knocked Anderson Silva out cold to become the new middleweight champion. Since then, it's been a slippery slope for Anderson. Nevertheless, he is still to this day considered by most to be one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time. There may never be another title reign as dominant as Demetrious Johnson's. After a rough start with a draw to Ian McCall, and a split decision win over Joseph Benavidez to win the flyweight title, Demetrious Johnson became a killer overnight. It went on to defend his belt an unbelievable 11 times before losing his title to Henry Cejudo in a close split decision. Through the majority of his title reign, almost no one was able to give Demetrious Johnson any sort of problems, seeing as how he was just too well-rounded. Not only that, but Demetrious Johnson actually seemed to improve drastically as time went on, with each defense looking more impressive than the last. As if being skilled in all areas of the game wasn't enough, Johnson also seemed to have no weaknesses or holes for fighters to exploit.
Well, Dak, here's the deal. I'm the best there is, plain and simple. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I piss excellence.
Although Henry Cejudo was recently able to dethrone Demetrious Johnson in a razor-close split decision, Demetrious Johnson is still one of the best mixed martial artists today.
Sicknesses, big wing cuts, hurricanophilia, you can't stop the Siberian Express. Choo-choo, motherfuckers!
Yeah. If you guys enjoyed this video, let me know by leaving a like and subscribing. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.
You never have a doubt, do you like me now? Am I good enough now? Should I get more loud? Till you hear the fucking sound? Oh no, I'm losing my shit again, having to fit again. Man, I'm forgetting when I used to have some friends. I used to play pretend, we all grow up and then hating my phone and trends. I'm about to blow my head, nobody knows I'm dead. Fear I'm a ghost instead, think that I'm close, I get straight comatose in bed. Try to go slow with breath, breathe out my nose and head. Heart doesn't go the trend, faster it goes.